class consists of two parts. The first, we are going to review the midterm exam you just took, and then later we will proceed to learn chapter 6. So let's look at the midterm exam first. So for problem 1, it asks you to find the left skewed distribution and left skewed. So we are only looking at the tails, right? So that depends on which side the tail is. So skewed to the left, so we want to look at the tail to shift to the left. So this part is shift to the right, so it's not correct. This one is shift to the left. So this one is correct. And then you ask to find the explanation of this. Of course, this is for the new coins. Usually, the older the coin is, like the more likely it gets lost or get deposed. So the correct answer should be the last one. The distribution of the coin years would be left skewed because newer coins are more common than the old ones. Okay, so the second one, you are given like 7 numbers and you are trying to find the statistics below. So the first one is try to find the mean x bar, and it actually tells you how to do that by summing the 7 observations and dividing by 7, right? So the formula for this is sum up all the data you have xi. So I can say this is x1, x2, all the way this is x7. You're adding them all up and divided by how many of them you have. So when you add all those numbers together, the answer is 11,074. So you divide it by 7, the answer is 1582. And now the next question, find each of the deviations. So this here, it tells you the deviation is just the differences between each data and the mean. So this is actually the definition of deviation. And then you're not only asked to find the deviation, and then you need to find their squares. So the square of the deviation. And now this question specifically in this blank asks for what's the sum of the deviations. Okay, so it's not asked for the squared. For this question, you only ask for the sum of the deviations. So let me make a table for that. You have some original data here. And then you will find the deviation, which is just that data, xi, subtract the median, subtract the mean. And then we find the square of the deviation. So now this is the deviation, and their squared refers to this part. They are different. Okay, we use this for the calculation of standard deviation, but the deviation itself only refer to this part. So don't get confused about these two terms. So for example, for the first data x1, we have 17, 18. So the deviation would just be 17, 18, subtract the mean, which is 1582. When you do that, the answer is 136. And of course, the square of that, use your calculator, it's 18,496. Okay, so this is for the first data. And then you move to x2. So you have 1679. Do the same thing, 1679, subtract the mean, which is 97. And then the square of that is 97 squared, which is 9409. Okay, so this is for the first two. So you do this all the way to the last one. Okay? And the question asks, what is the sum of the deviation? So you are asked to find the sum of this column, not the squared column there. And for this one, so if the data is greater than the mean, then we will see a positive number like this. When you have data that's lower than that, let's say, for example, the third one, x3, which is 13, 14. So you have 13, 14, subtract 15 something, and the answer will be a negative number. So when you actually add this column together, some negative number and a positive number will cancel each other. And if you do look at the formula, you will see that you are asked to find x1 subtract the mean plus x2 subtract the mean plus all the way to the last one, x7 subtract the mean. If you rearrange it, you will find the first is just x1 plus all the way to x7 subtract 7 times the mean, which is actually 0. So the sum of the deviation, usually from those kind of formula, you will see it's always 0. It's not usually, it's always 0. Okay, because how do we find the mean? The mean is the sum divided by the number of that. So this one, x1 plus all the way to x7 subtract 7 times. This is how the mean is calculated. This and that cancel each other. Now you see this part is that part. So this part is always 0. So the sum of the deviations, not standard deviation. Okay, here deviations and the standard deviation, they are two separate things. This question asks for the sum of the deviation, so it will be the sum of this green column here. So it's always 0. And then the next question, calculate the variance as an average of the squared deviations. Okay, so the variance is the square of the standard deviation. And so for the blue column, we use that to calculate the variance. So when you add all those numbers together, you'll find the answer is the sum of the squared variance is 222,462. So this is the sum of the squared deviations. And to find the variance will be the sum here divided by the number we have, which is 7, subtract 1. So the answer for that is 37,077. Okay, it's just this number. And the last one, we want to find the square root of the deviation. By definition, this is the standard deviation. So the variance is this one, and the standard deviation is the square root of this number, which is 192.55. Okay, so I think some of you missed the definition here. So the key point here is to know these deviations, they are not standard. deviation. Okay, they are two different things. Keep this in your mind. Okay, so this I'm actually deciding to chop up the whole class into several videos, so it's easier for me to upload and manage them. So this is for part 1.